Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about how the sun's path affects the shadows that it creates. So, what is insolation? Remember, insolation is the incoming solar radiation, and it's how much sunlight a particular area of the Earth receives. And the angle of insolation has a great impact on the temperature on different places in the Earth. The angle is of the insolation is the angle at which the sun's light is striking the Earth. So, say, let's compare summer and winter. In the summertime, we said that the sun is higher in the sky. It has a longer path, it stays in the sky longer. But notice that when the sun is higher in the sky like this, it has a higher angle of insolation, meaning its angle from the ground is closer to 90 degrees. And because it's at a higher angle of insolation, the sun's light striking the surface is more concentrated, just like you see here, and that's why it's warmer as well. But in the wintertime, the sun is lower in the sky, and this causes a lower angle of insolation. Notice the angle of the sun in the wintertime compared to in relation to the surface compared to summer. So since in the wintertime we have a lower angle of insolation, our sun's rays are hitting the Earth's surface more indirectly, and that's causing the sun's rays to be more spread out and less concentrated like in the summertime. And since the Earth's rays are so spread out on the surface in the winter, um, it's not as concentrated, it's not as intense, so it's less warm in the winter. Let's write this down in our note packet. So the highest point of the sun is in New York is on June 21st. It's at noon. The direction of it at its highest point is towards the south, and during that time it's at a very high angle of insolation, and when we have a higher angle of insolation we have greater intensity of sunlight, and therefore it's warmer. So let's compare summer and winter sun's paths again in New York. So remember, in New York, the sun rises in the northeast, its highest point is in the south, and sets in the northwest in the summertime. And in the wintertime, it rises in the southeast, the highest point is in the south, and sets in the southwest in the wintertime. So notice that. Um, when the sun is highest in the sky in both seasons and every season in New York, it's towards the south, right? If the sunlight were to create shadows, then those shadows will point opposite the location where the sun's rays are coming from. For instance, if the sun's highest point is towards the south, at this point your shadow will be in the opposite direction towards the north, just like this. Same thing in the wintertime. The sun's highest point is in the south. My shadow will point towards the north. So shadows are always the opposite direction of where the sun is. Also notice the length of the shadow, how long it is. When the sun is highest in the sky, for instance, in the summertime, my shadows are very short. And when the sun is lower in the sky in the winter, for instance, my shadows are very long. So the higher the angle of insolation, the shorter the shadow, and the lower the angle of the sun or insolation, the longer the shadow. And shadows will always point the opposite direction of where the sun's rays are coming from. Let's write this down. So the higher angle of insolation will create shorter shadows, and shadows always face north in New York, particularly because the sun's highest point is in the south. When I say always face north, I meant during when the sun is at its highest point in New York, it's towards the south. During that time, since the sun is towards the south, my shadows will face north. So just in the highest point. And that's it. We're gonna talk about or practice some questions now.